So now we've been through the theory and through, sort of a few typical sort of tricky scenarios that can often catch you out when trying to map your fractal structure. It's probably about time we actually do a walkthrough on the charts using actual price action examples. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through, maybe about a couple of weeks worth of price action on the 4-hour chart on euro dollar. Starting around 12th of May 2022. So we'll go through some examples together, literally loading it bar by bar, talk through all of the rules so we can kind of get very familiar with it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to pause the video after we do that. And I'm going to give you some specific dates, like a date range to go through, and for you to then go and apply this to your own charts to practice doing it. And then you're going to come back and then we'll go through that same time period together. So then you can compare your analysis to mine, because, it can be quite easy to watch, someone do something. It all makes logical sense. You're like, yep, I get it, easy, no problem. But then when you actually go and do it yourself, right, without that guidance, that's where it really highlights where, the current potential gaps may be in your knowledge, right, with your current level of understanding. So again, we'll go through, maybe a couple of weeks of price action or something, depends on how long it takes, right? And then I'll pause the video, give you a time period to go and do yourself. You can then come back, unpause the video, right, and then watch us go through it together. Now, what I'll also do is I'll put, hopefully you haven't already looked, but I'll put in the notes below the video, detailed screenshots of other time periods of data. So then if you want even more practice, right, you can go do those yourselves and then go and compare those to the screenshots that I put below the video. So there should be more than enough for you to practice with and compare your analysis to mine. And as the data continues to obviously print from the time of recording, it's September 2022 at the moment. Obviously, people will be watching these videos at a future date. As there's been more price action, I'll add in those examples to the notes below the video, so you'll have plenty of recent PA to look at. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So I've just sort of brought price back to a pretty sort of easy level for us to continue from. So I won't go over this price action to tell you why this was the last bearish change of character, but just believe me, it is. And for some of you who want to go test it, you'll be able to arrive at the same point. But from now on, we'll go forward and I'll sort of, we'll just go for it here. So when we get a bearish change of character, right, we obviously know that the fractal structure is bearish at this point, but we want to find our current fractal range that we are within. So to do that, we need to know where is our current active fractal high. So after we get a bearish change of character, if you know the rules, we want to look back and we want to find where is the nearest high. And we define the nearest high as the nearest candle that failed to break the previous candle's low. So did this candle here break the previous candle's low? Yes, it did. I'm going to zoom in even more. All right. Let's bring these over here. Yeah, we can see that it did, right? So did this candle here break the previous candle's low? No, it failed to break that previous candle's low. So this now becomes our current active fractal high. Because basically what happens is these three candles break the previous candle's low. This one fails to do so. So that means that we've had that fractal pullback and then we've had the down movement. So that's why when we look back, that's our nearest high. Because remember, we want to be aggressive with fractal structure. So we can draw this on here, right? Just use a trend line tool. So if you want to do this, you can grab the trend line tool on the left-hand side and then you can make different templates. So like say you open this up, there's a text box up here. You can add whatever you want. So like fractal high, I've done fractal low for the other one, right? Because you can put the text in the middle or the bottom, center, left or right. You can play around with that. It's all reasonably self-explanatory, text size, color, etc., what time frames it will appear on, all that fun stuff. And then the style, you can change the thickness of the line. You want dosh dated, all that fun stuff. I'll let you play around with it. Okay, cool. So that's the fractal high. And obviously this will be the fractal low at the moment, but I'm not going to map that on until we actually get our fractal pullback. So let's play price forward candle by candle. So the next candle obviously continues that fractal down move because it breaks the previous candle's low. All we're looking at is the lows of the candles. Remember, we're not looking at the highs unless, of course, it actually broke the current high, right? So let's keep going. Next candle continues that move, right? It breaks the previous candle's low, so let's keep going. Let's see, the low of this candle is, if you look up here, right, you can see the actual coordinates if you're never quite sure, because sometimes it can be a bit hard to see if it's close. The low of this candle, if you look up there now, see how that says 54.7, right? The low of this one is 54.2. So this was half a pip lower. So despite it being a bullish candle, we haven't actually had a fractal pullback yet. Why? Because this candle here, it did actually break this candle's low. So that's still part of the down move. And that's why you have to really train your mind to ignore the color of the candles when doing this, when looking at fractal structure, okay? So next candle along, now we finally have that confirmed fractal pullback. Why? Well, because this candle failed to break the previous candle's low, right? So that means we have now had that fractal pullback, and now we can actually confirm that this is the fractal low. So now we know the range that we are trading within. So for now, all I want you to think about is when you know your fractal low and you know your fractal high, essentially you want to ignore everything that happens in between there until either the low or the high is broken, right? It could just be wick, right? Price only needs to break it by 0.1 pips for it to count as a fractal break, right? A fractal boss. So what we can do now is we can just play price forward candle by candle until either the low or the high goes. And now we see the fractal low breaks, okay? So when that low breaks to the downside, that is essentially just a continuation of the fractal structure. So for that, we're just going to use a solid line in this instance. Now, in the live market, I wouldn't draw this on, which you'll see in a bit in later lessons, but just for the sake of the exercise, right, we want to mark these on just to know that there was a fractal continuation. So you may want a line that's a bit different to the CHoCH, because remember, CHoCH is when it changes trend, and let's just say we use a solid line for a continuation of the fractal trend, okay? So as we saw, the candle, right, we pulled back, and then we came down, and then we took the low, okay? So when it takes that low, we now have a new fractal range. So as soon as we get that low, at the moment it happens, so you don't have to wait for the candle to close. The moment that low goes, so like imagine you're watching this in the live market, you have your low here and your high here, and then you see price come down and it breaks that low. The very millisecond that happens, that price trades 0.1 pips lower than this low, right? That is a confirmed fractal break. And at that moment, at that exact moment in the live market, right, you want to look back and go, where is our nearest fractal high now? Remember, it's the nearest candle that failed to break the previous candle's low. So did this candle break the previous candle's low? Yes, it obviously did. Did this candle? Yes. Did this candle break the previous candle's low? No, it didn't, okay? And that then becomes our high, right? Because no candle traded higher since it either, right? So this is where then we can move our fractal high down to this level at that exact moment, okay? That becomes our fractal high, and obviously this is the low, but we can draw it on when we actually get the next candle to fail to break that previous candle's low. So now we've actually had that confirmed pullback, that fractal pullback. Why? Because this candle didn't continue the down move, right? So now we can know with confidence that this is where our active fractal low is. So at this point, the fractal structure is still bearish. This high needs to break for there to be a bullish CHoCH, right? So this is essentially your CHoCH line, right? If the fractal structure is bearish, your fractal high is essentially where your CHoCH level would be, right? That's where you can leave that CHoCH line. Because if this high goes, then what happens? Then the fractal structure has shifted bullish and we have that bullish CHoCH, okay? So let's see what happens next. Nothing happens, right? We're just moving sideways. And remember, when you have your active fractal range, essentially you do nothing until either the high or the low is broken, right? We basically just ignore everything that happens in between. It's just noise, right? For now, we don't pay attention to it. Okay, so nothing's happened. We haven't broken the high or low. Okay, now we have broken the fractal high. So because the fractal structure was bearish and now it's shifted bullish because we've broken the fractal high, what is that break, right? It's a CHoCH, it's a change of character because the fractal structure has shifted from bearish to bullish, right? So that is your CHoCH. So I've just shortened CHoCH, CHoCH to CH just to keep it a little bit neater. Okay, so now we've had that fractal breaker structure to the upside, which is a change of character, right? Because the fractal structure has shifted trend. So at the exact moment that price breaks that high, again, you do not have to wait for the candle closure with fractal structure. At the exact moment that price breaks that high, we need to know where is the new fractal low. And it's the last candle that failed to break the previous candle's high. So let's zoom right in. Okay, so start your way from the current candle that broke. Did this candle break the previous candle's high? Yes, it did. Okay, cool. Did this candle here break the previous candle's high? Yes, it did. Okay, cool. Did this candle here break the previous candle's high? No, it didn't, okay? So this should be our fractal low. But if we draw it across, price is traded through it. So does that make sense? No, okay? So that's then, remember that example that we went through in the previous lesson where we then adjust it to this level here, right? And then that becomes our new fractal low, okay? Now if you think about it from the way price moved, right, we essentially had that up movement, that down movement, then we had the inside bar, then we come down, and then we go up. So that's why that's our low. Now, these are inside bars. I know I briefly talked about them in the previous lesson. And that is essentially your, it's an inside bar is a candle that fails to break the previous candle's high or low. So you see how it trades between this high and low? That's why it's an inside bar. This is also an inside bar. Why? Because it also traded between the high and low of this candle, right? So I've just got an indicator on at the moment that colors them that way up here. So if you go into here, right, it's just got it for that color. If you change to orange, they would mark them out orange, okay? So that's all it is an indicator that supports those rules, and it just colors them a little bit differently. If you want to add that to your charts, just go up into indicators. It's just off screen, unfortunately, but indicators just above here, right? And you'll see it. And if you type in inside bar, you can find there's many in there. A few of them are a bit buggy. So what I'll do is I'll put a link in the notes below of the one that I found works perfectly fine, okay? Cool, so just a quick recap. We obviously shifted bullish, the fractal structure. We had that bullish change of character to the upside. At that exact moment, literally the exact moment in the live market that price breaks the high, you do not have to wait for the candle close. There has been a bullish fractal breaker structure to the upside. In this case, it's a change of character because before the fractal structure was bearish, now it has shifted bullish. So that's why we label it as a CHoCH rather than just a line like this, right? Because that's a continuation of the fractal trend. So when we get that bullish change of character at that exact moment, we want to find where is the new fractal low. So we want to find the last candle that failed to break the previous candle's high, which brought us to this inside bar because this inside bar failed to break the previous candle's high. But it doesn't make sense to draw a low here, does it? Because price has traded through it. So that's why we just adjust it to the next candle. Easy enough. Don't worry, you will get this. This will come with time and experience, but you can literally see this in a split second. And in the live market, all we'll be drawing on is this. We'll quickly just draw on that. We won't bother with everything else. Trust me, you'll be able to see it so quickly, okay? Cool. So now we are bullish on the fractal structure. Next candle. It's a bearish candle, but what does it do? It breaks the previous candle's high. So it's all part of the up move, okay? So we keep going along. So now this candle has done what? It's failed to break the previous candle's high. So now means we're having what? We're having that fractal pullback. So as soon as we have a candle that fails to break the previous candle's high in a bullish fractal market, we can now mark on this as our high. Now, when it came back down, did it break the fractal low? Well, what is the low of the fractal low? If I put my mouse on this candle and then we look up here, right? Just gonna put my mouse back there. The low is 89.2. And what's the low of this candle? 89.4. So what that means is this latest candle, it didn't actually break this low. It traded 0.2 pips higher. So when it's really, really tight to see, that's where these coordinates become really useful, okay? So this candle did not break the fractal low, so we're still within this range, right? Let's see what happens next. Okay, price continues and breaks the upside. So now what we have had is we've had that fractal continuation, okay? So I'm just gonna move this out the way and then I'm gonna copy this line here. Now, if you ever wanna copy a drawing, if you hold down Command on a Mac or Control on Windows, so if you hold down the Control button and then you click here and drag, hold down the mouse, you can copy a drawing that you already have, okay? I'm just gonna use this to show that fractal continuation. Okay, so at that exact moment, we had the fractal continuation. Where is the nearest candle that failed to break the previous candle's high? Well, obviously this candle did break the previous candle's high, so we go to the next one. Did this candle break the previous candle's high? No, okay. So that becomes our new low, right? So it basically looks the same, but that would be our new low here. Cool, next candle. Breaks the high, so it's part of the up move. Pulls back, so that's our fractal high. Okay, I'll go a little bit quicker now. Okay, so we pull back, trade in between this range, and we've continued to the upside. Okay, so now we have a new fractal high. So again, we can use this as here, move this out of the way. There's our fractal continuation. Now, where is our new fractal low? It's the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's high, which would be this inside bar, right? So now we adjust it to here, right? And that's the fractal structure continuing. Okay. Big candle there, so we continue to move up, zoom out a little bit now. And now we pull back, right? This fails to break the previous candle's high, so this becomes our new active fractal high. And I know this exercise is a bit tedious, but we have to go through this process to make sure you have, absolute crystal clear understanding of how to do this, so you can spot it, in tricky scenarios. Sometimes it can be a bit hard to see. But in terms of our actual trading, right, you'll see how we incorporate this in the live market going along. But for now, you just have to do this sort of, tedious mechanical exercise to make sure you really understand it first, okay? And then you'll learn how we actually interpret it to make trading decisions. So we pull back. Again, we don't break the high low. So price can do anything at once. Now, this is a key lesson because this is where people get caught out a lot in the live market, is they'll see price come back like this, right? And then it breaks a high and they go, oh, is that a change of character? And they'll see it come up like this. And then they'll come down and they go, oh, is that a change of character? We've had a bearish shock here. Well, no, because where are we? We're trading within the current active fractal range. So everything in between here, we ignore, okay? Now, there's some more advanced concepts where we'll look at, where you can pay attention to a CHoCH within here, and we call that an CHoCH. But for now, don't worry about that, and you do not want to be doing that. You want to be 100% strict and mechanical, and as long as price has not taken out the current fractal high or the current fractal low, you want to ignore everything in between. That is my solid advice for now, okay? You want to stick to that. Cool, what's next? Okay, we break the high. Again, I'll just do a few more examples and then I'll let you guys go and practice this yourself. Just do another 2 or 3 examples, okay? Just want to get to some slightly more complex price action. So when we break that high, where's the nearest candle that failed to break the previous candle's low? Let's zoom in a little bit. Well, this candle broke the previous candle's high, right? This candle broke this candle broke the previous candle's high, right? Did this candle break the previous candle's high? No, obviously it didn't do so. So let's draw our low here. Oh wait, does it make sense? No, price is traded lower than it. So that's why we then move it to here, right? You can see why. Price obviously comes down like this and then does that. So that's why that's our nearest low. Cool. So this moves to here. Again, we'll just do a few more examples. Okay. So now we have a pullback. So now we can define that that's our fractal high because it failed to break the previous candle's high. See what happens next. And then we break structure to the downside, right? We break the fractal structure to the downside. So what is that? That's a change of character, because when the fractal structure changes trend, that's what we call a CHoCH, right? Change of character, okay? Now, when this low breaks here, this fractal low, where is our new high? Well, we need to look back and see where was the nearest candle that failed to break the previous candle's low. Well, this candle broke this previous candle's low, this candle broke this previous candle's low, this candle failed to break the previous candle's low, so that would be our fractal high, so it stays in the same place in this instance. Cool. Now what happens? Price fails to break the previous candle's low, so then we can define where our fractal low is. Cool. So now we do nothing until either the fractal high or low breaks. Now, in this instance, right, let's play this. Sometimes it can be a bit tricky to see what happened first, right? Did price break the low first? Because what could have happened, right, is it could have broken that low first, then that would have become the high. Right, at that moment, price comes down, right? This would have become the new high. But sometimes when the candle is still moving, it can then come up and break the high to the upside. And then you have a bullish CHoCH all in one candle, right? So again, I'll go over that. You can have this inside bar here. And then this next candle, if it moves down first and breaks the low, that is a continuation of the fractal trend, right? Yeah, because it just continues down, it breaks the low. So at that exact moment, this would become the high at that moment, right? Where the high is. But as price is down here in this same candle, right, because obviously this is a 4-hour candle, it takes 4 hours to print, price could come back up to the upside and then break that high, and then you'd have a bullish change of character. So that can happen all in one. So how do you tell what happened first? Did it come up like this and have a pullback and then go down? So then it's just a continuation, and this would be our new high and low, right? Or did it take the low first and continue? So that's the continuation, and then have a bullish change of character here. Right, so that's what can happen when you have one candle like this, and this is a bit more complex. So if you didn't see it happen live, what you can do then is jump down to the lower time frames and see what order it happened. Okay, so if we go down to the M15, what can we see? Well, we can see here, all right, so we're just looking to see like what price action made up the 4-hour candle, or we can see price pull back, right, and then it came down, all right, and it took the low first. Okay, sorry, it broke the high first, and then it came down. So it's a continuation at this point, okay? So this was the 4-hour price action, right? It pulled back, and then it took the low. So in this case, it's just a continuation. Whereas what it could have happened is it could have come down, it could have taken the low, and then at that moment, that would have been the high, and then price could have broken at the upside, and that would have been a bullish CHoCH. But it didn't. It pulled back first, and then took the low. Okay, so that's why it's a continuation and not a change of character. Okay, it's a little bit more advanced, but they're the ones that you need to kind of keep an eye out on. But you'll get the hang of this as we go. And really in this example, you can kind of tell just by looking at the candles, right? Because we have the bullish pullback, right? You can see we close up here, then we come up, and then we have a bearish candle close. So that one's a bit easier to spot anyway, okay? So that's a good complex example that I'm glad kind of came up. Sometimes those can catch you out a little bit. So what did we have? We had a fractal continuation to the downside. And then at this point, where is our fractal high? It's the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's low, which would be the inside bar, but the next candle traded higher than it, right? So this is where we're gonna adjust it to. So I'll do one more example and then I'll give you guys some homework. So that continues the fractal move to the downside. This candle here fails to break the previous candle's low. So now we have a confirmed fractal pullback. This is the range. We do nothing until this range is broken now, okay? So we chill out. Okay, it's not doing anything. Now we've broken the high to the upside. So we had bearish fractal structure. Now it's shifted bullish. So what do we have? We have a change of character. Again, you can hold down Command or Control and drag with your mouse just to copy that template there. All right, and now we have that bullish move to the upside. Where is our fractal low? Well, we need to find the nearest candle that failed to break the previous candle's high. That broke the high, that broke the high, that broke the high. That one failed to break the previous candle's high, so the low stays in the same place. And that's where we're at. So I'll leave that there. So that actually took a little bit longer than I thought, just to do a few bits of price action. So that's brought us to the 19th of May. So what I would say to you is go to the end of the month, right? Go do from the 19th of May, 2022, and do this all the way to the end of May, right? So the 30th or 31st of May. I can't remember how many days there is in May. 30 days of September, April, June, and November. Yes, there must be 31 days in May. So go to the end of that, right? It's the start of June on the 4-hour chart on Euro-Dollar. Use kind of the exact same templates I have here, whatever you prefer. Map it out, right? And then come back to this video, right? Pause it now after talking, right? Come back to this video, and then we can go through it together, okay? So pause it now and go and do that. Cool. Okay. So hopefully you've done that. You didn't cheat, right? So from the 19th of May to the end of the month, and let's go through it together. Now, what I'm going to do now going forward is I'm going to do this a lot quicker. Okay. So, you know, if you're not quite sure, just watch the previous bit as many times as you need, but I'm going to do this a bit quicker now because hopefully you guys should be a lot more comfortable with it, right? So we go forward, we continue the up move, we continue the up move. Okay. Now we pull back, right? So this is going to be our fractal high, right? Fractal low still in the same place. So we do nothing now till either the high or the low goes. Right, the high goes, so now that's a continuation. Okay, so we can put this here. Now we want to find where our nearest fractal low is. It's the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's high, which would be this low here, okay? So this becomes our low, and we continue the movement. So let's see what happens next. Price continues to the upside, continues to the upside, continues to the upside, pulls back, so that's our fractal high. Okay, cool. Now we pull back and then we break the structure to the upside. So then we have a continuation. All right. And then this becomes our fractal low, as this was the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's high. Cool. So we pull back. You see, sometimes if you go really quickly, you can miss things, but we had that continuation, right? Price pulls back, so we had the fractal pullback, and then we continue to the upside. Inside bar was the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's high. So that becomes our fractal low. So we pull back, so this becomes our fractal high. All right, what happens next? Nothing, all right, we wait for the high or low to go, and then the low goes. So that now means we've had a change of the fractal trend, so a change of character, and then that becomes our level of CHoCH. So we can put that there and that there. Now, when we get that change of character, this is where you have to be paying attention, right? And you can't speed through it. Where is the last candle that failed to break the previous candle's low? Well, we can see all of these lows traded lower, that low traded lower, that low did not break the low, right? So that becomes our fractal high. But wait. All right, we have to be 100% mechanical here. You can see if we zoom in, price traded higher on the next candle. So this is where then you have to adjust it to here, and that would be our fractal high, okay? Cool. So those candles break the previous candle's low. This one fails to do so. So now we have the fractal pullback. So we do nothing until this range breaks. Okay, there the range breaks, right? So now we have a bullish change of character because it was bearish and now it's shifted bullish because price has traded higher than that high. So where is our fractal low? Well, we look back, where was the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's high? So all of these highs break the previous high. This candle here fails to break the previous candle's high, right? It fails to break this high. So that becomes our new low. Why? Because you see price comes up, then it comes down, and then all of these candles break the previous candle's high. So that's why that becomes our new low. Okay, so there's our fractal low. Cool, nearly there, not long now, guys. So that continues the up movement, that pulls back, that's our fractal high. All right. Nothing, we do nothing right until the range breaks. Okay, we get a bullish fractal continuation because the fractal structure was already bullish, so it's not a change of character, it's simply just a continuation. Okay. Now, when the high breaks, whereas the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's high, what was the high of this candle? The high is 370. The high of this is 366. So yeah, that did break the high. So this is the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's high. So that becomes our fractal low, okay? That breaks the high, that breaks the high, that breaks the high, does it? Let me double check. 86.5, 87, yeah, so that was a continuation of the fractal structure. Now we pull back, so now we know where our fractal high is. Okay, there it is. Cool, let's see what happens. And we have a bearish break of the fractal structure, so that means a change of character, right? Because we switched from bullish to bearish, whereas the last candle to fail to break the previous candle's low. These all break the lows, this one didn't, so the fractal high stays in the same place. Okay, that one, yeah, that does trade lower. So again, ignore the color of the candle, it's still part of the down move, right? Okay, now we've had the pullback because this candle fails to break the previous candle's low, so now you can mark that out as the fractal low. Do nothing until the range breaks. So we have a continuation of the fractal structure. All right, we get a break of this low here. Now, at this exact moment, where is the last candle that failed to break the previous candle's low? Where we can see here, we had a break, we had a break, we had a break, we had a break, and then that fails to break that previous candle's low. So the inside bar would be the high, but as you've probably hopefully got correct, whoops, this next candle trades higher, right? So this is the instance, right? This is a bit of a tricky one where I would move the fractal high to there, right? Wherever it trades higher, that's where the high is going to be that I want to see go. Okay, so not this high here, because all of those candles are part of the down move. It would be the inside bar. So you start from the inside bar, look left, where's the highest point? It's this point here, okay? So that's your fractal high at that point. Okay, then we get a pullback. So now we know where the fractal low is. We've come to June, okay, sweet. So yeah, hopefully that kind of cleared up some of the price action you guys tried to had a go at. There's a few little tricky ones in there. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of sort of any things I want to add to here. Again, I'll stress the importance of right now, this is just kind of like an exercise in which you have to go through this process to just fully 100% mechanically understand the rules, especially when it's some, sometimes it can be quite tricky examples to figure it out and get your head around. Sometimes it's obviously clear and easy. But once you've got that understood, then the task becomes of understanding how do we actually use it as useful information with the trading? Like when do we pay attention to it? When do we not? And what does that actually mean? Okay. And that will come in the later lessons, and that will also come with time and experience. But for now, just trust the process, right? Trust the reasons why we're doing this, trust the reasons why we're going through these exercises, and get it nailed down. So I'll leave the video here so it isn't super long. Okay. But what I will do is for maybe in the next few months is I'll do some detailed screenshots of the price action, and I'll put it in the notes below the video. So what I'd recommend is you go through and do yourself, right, on the 4-hour chart for the next few months that are below in the notes, and then compare it to notes within there and really study it and make sure you have, every single one, pretty much completely correct, okay? Now, again, there will be times when price action can get super messy and super complex, and don't worry if you can't 100% wrap your head around it, because to be honest, in the live market, that's when I'm not paying attention to CHoCH, right? I'm just let price do its thing. It's messy, it's incorrective. It doesn't matter so much. But yeah, I'll leave that there, okay? Hope you guys took some value from that, and I'll see you in the next one.